The morning they demoed my code without me, I didn't even know it was happening. I was sitting 2 floors down, nursing my third cup of office-brewed disappointment, polishing the final lines of Odyssey's predictive logic model. The model I built, from scratch. Every line of code, a tiny war against burnout and carpal tunnel. I'd been clocking 16-hour days for weeks, sleeping with my laptop like it was a sick child, eating protein bars that tasted like despair, and dreaming in JavaScript. And somewhere upstairs, behind closed glass doors and smug grins, Mark and David were taking a victory lap on my legs. When I finally found out, it wasn't from them. It was from the intern, sweet, nervous Aditi, who muttered, "Didn't they tell you you'd be in the pitch?" "It's live now," she showed me the conference room webcam link. And there they were. My boss Mark, all smooth hair gel and borrowed charisma, demoing my prototype like it was a damn slideshow he slapped together in PowerPoint. David nodded solemnly in the background like some kind of beige gargoyle. And look, if you've made it this far, maybe pause for half a second to tap that subscribe button and throw us a like. No guilt trip, I swear, but 97% of folks just ghost these stories without showing love. And honestly, it helps the team hear more than caffeine and vengeance combined. All right, back to the bloodbath. To be clear, Odyssey wasn't some app that ordered tacos with emojis. It was a machine learning-driven workflow tool that adapted to team behavior in real time. Smart enough to auto-prioritize tasks, flag inefficiencies, and learn from mistakes. The kind of thing that could make a bloated Fortune 500 feel lean and fast again. I didn't just write the code, I breathed it. Odyssey was my insomnia in binary. And yet, ever since week 3 of the project, things had started to warp. Mark had begun dropping phrases like "we'll take it from here" and "we'll present a unified front." I thought he meant the team. Spoiler, he meant himself and David. He'd forget to CC me on follow-ups with the client. He'd smile while saying, "Rachel's good with the tech, but let's be honest, she's not a closer." And when he did loop me in, it was to ask if I could put together some bullet points for his slide deck, like I was his secretary with a GitHub account. I should have trusted my gut, that slow, bone-deep suspicion that kept whispering, "They're freezing you out." But I kept brushing it off. Told myself I was being paranoid, overly sensitive, probably just tired. That this was what team dynamics looked like in the final stretch. That this was just pre-launch chaos. You know what pre-launch chaos doesn't include? Getting iced out of your own brainchild. That day, as I sat staring at the screen while Mark mispronounced the function names I invented, something in me snapped. Not loudly, not in flames. It was quiet, cold, like frost spreading over a windshield. I stared at the intern link, watched Mark click through my features with all the grace of a drunk guy swiping Tinder. I felt the rage settle in my gut like an old friend. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I did something worse. I started planning. And just like that, the first match dropped. I didn't know it yet, but the fire was coming. It started with the door clicks. Mark's office had one of those heavy, dramatic hinges. When it shut, it announced itself. Every time it thudded closed behind David, the regional VP of mediocrity, echoed through our little corner of the building like a warning shot. You could smell the change in the air, a cocktail of aftershave, sour coffee, and bullshit. It was 1 week before the big pitch to Innovate Corp, the presentation that was supposed to be our moment, my moment. Except, somehow, I wasn't being asked to rehearse anything. No invites to strategy meetings, no dry runs. Mark started treating Odyssey like it was a vending machine he'd designed, not a living learning system I'd nurtured out of sheer caffeine and spite. I asked him, casually at first, if they needed anything final for the deck. "Oh yeah, good thought," he said, flipping through Slack like I was a pop-up ad. "Could you shoot over a quick doc with the back-end architecture outlined? Just to, back it up for ops." Back it up for ops. Ops didn't even know what Odyssey was last month, so I asked gently, "Is this for the client packet or internal?" He blinked. "Both. Either. Just being thorough, And then he did that thing he always did when he was lying, rubbed the side of his nose like he was trying to erase his own face. Red flag #37. Then David jumped in via email a few hours later with his own gem. "Let's also get a full export of the repo history, just in case we need to roll back. You know how these demos can go sideways. Roll back. Since when did David even know how GitHub worked? It hit me low in the belly. The kind that curls around your ribs and whispers they're boxing you out. Slowly, deliberately, not with knives but with paper cuts. They weren't just excluding me, they were erasing me. I tried one more time that Thursday afternoon. Caught Mark by the Keurig like a ghost in a haunted kitchen. Do we want to run through the demo flow together before next week? I asked. I can optimize the UX a bit more if I know what you're showing. Mark looked startled. Oh, right, yeah. We were actually thinking of doing a slightly higher level overview. Less technical, more storytelling. David's big on executive simplicity. I stood there, blinking at him over a stale hazelnut brew pod, and realized what he was really saying. They didn't need me at the presentation because they didn't plan to mention me at the presentation. Odyssey was never ours. Not to them. It was a trophy. I was just the janitor who polished it up. By Friday, they had asked for every asset I had, test environments, UX flowcharts, even my internal documentation templates, all under the cheerful, artificial umbrella of backups. I zipped it all up, not because I trusted them, but because I needed them to think I was still playing the game. I renamed the folder, Final Odyssey Backup. What they didn't know was that I kept the real final version, one with the hidden feature they said was too niche for enterprise, the one I knew would blow the clients' minds. They could take my code, but I still had my version. I still had my brain. And more importantly, I had a feeling, no, a certainty, that this thing was about to detonate. The room smelled like printer toner and bad decisions. Windowless, off-white walls, a dying ficus in the corner like it had seen too much and given up. Char always picks these sterile little tombs for transitions, like grief doesn't echo better off drywall. I walked in with no clue what was waiting. Thought maybe it was another round of compliance training, or Mark needing me to rewrite his bullet points in English instead of PowerPoint. But then I saw the box. One of those bland, brown cardboard boxes, with two handles cut into the sides, your standard issue career coffin. Mark and David were already seated. Mark wouldn't look at me. David offered a single, dry nod like he was bidding farewell to an underperforming Roomba. The HR rep, some temp with a nervous smile and trembling clipboard, cleared her throat like she was announcing the weather. Rachel, as of today, your role has been impacted by ongoing restructuring efforts. I didn't even hear the rest. My ears were filled with the sound of my own pulse. Restructuring. That's the word they used. They just decided to rearrange the office chairs and whoops. I happened to be sitting in one that rolled into the fire. Mark finally spoke when she paused. It's nothing personal. Honestly, this isn't a reflection on your technical skill. And then he did it. That smirk. That oily, slow curl of his lip like a dog sniffing something it doesn't respect. We just felt your contributions to Odyssey were, let's say, a little unfocused. Maybe you weren't fully prepared for the final push. Unfocused. I wanted to throw the coffee mug off the table and scream, you demoed my prototype with my code while I was 2 floors down optimizing the feature you said no one would use. But I didn't even blink. Because something colder had settled in me. Something cleaner than grief, sharper than humiliation. It was clarity. Pure, surgical clarity. This wasn't about performance. This wasn't a restructuring. This was a heist. They didn't need me anymore because they thought they had me. The code, the docs, the presentation script. They thought they'd buried the body and were already divvying up the inheritance. HR handed me the box like she was offering an umbrella in a monsoon. We'll escort you back to your desk so you can gather your personal items. I didn't need to. I already knew what I had to do. I walked out holding the box with one hand and my dignity with the other. And in that long, silent hallway, I made a promise to myself. You want a final push, Mark? I'll give you a damn final push. And when I do, it won't be on your timeline. It won't be in your boardroom. It'll be on the ashes of your arrogance. You're not going to see it coming because it's already begun. The first night after they fired me, I didn't sleep. I just laid there, flat on my back in my dark apartment, eyes boring holes into the ceiling, as if enough rage could crack through drywall and punch God in the jaw. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that stupid smirk, Mark's smug little eulogy of my career. Unfocused, unprepared. I'd hear it over and over, and every time the words would rot a little more in my skull until they started smelling like what they really were, lies built from theft. The grief came in waves. Think about my team, my real team, the juniors I'd mentored, the test engineers who stayed late with me for pizza and bug squashing. I thought about all those weekends I skipped brunch with my sister to rewrite a feature request. For what? So a walking necktie could lock me in a casket and take my creation to prom. But then came the shift. The turn, like a chemical reaction in my bloodstream. My sorrow fermented overnight into something darker, denser. Fuel. Around 4:12 a.m., I got up, made the strongest cup of coffee legal in this state, and opened my laptop. My hands moved without asking permission, like they already knew the plan before I did. First, I reopened the source code, the real Odyssey, not the gutted version they snatched from the shared repo. The one with the adaptive prioritization model, the integrated machine learning tweak I'd never pushed because we'll keep it simple for the client. Version that still had my fingerprints all over it, encrypted and timestamped with a private key I'd hidden so deep it might as well have been in Narnia. Then I remembered her. Sarah Chen, CTO of Innovate Corp. We met 6 months ago at some soul-killing tech summit in San Diego. We'd both escaped the keynote early and ended up in line at the hotel bar. I remember she laughed when I ordered whiskey at 11 a.m. "You must be one of the real engineers," she said. Later, after I talked through some of Odyssey's early challenges, she'd said something that stuck. "If your team ever stops listening, come find me." At the time, I thought it was a kindness, a courtesy line from a powerful woman who didn't owe me anything. But now, it sounded like a goddamn flare in the night sky. I dug through old emails, found her card buried under 10,000 unread LinkedIns, typed a single line in the subject. "The Odyssey you are about to see is a pale imitation." The body of the email was just one sentence. "I have the genuine article." I stared at it for 5 full minutes before I hit send. My heart was pounding like I was defusing a bomb, which in a way, I guess I was. Then I opened up a new browser tab, registered a domain, Phonics Solutions Tech, got an EIN, filed LLC paperwork with what was left of my savings, all expedited, all under a new banner with fire in its name. Because I wasn't just coming back. I was coming back from the ashes. By sunrise, Phoenix Solutions was a thing. A baby, barely crawling, made of sleepless code and caffeine, but mine. A one-woman rebellion with nothing to lose and everything to take back. No VC backing, no corporate war chest. Just a pissed-off developer, a brilliant prototype, and a fire no layoff could extinguish. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about proving with undeniable, brutal clarity that I was the Odyssey, and they had just made the worst mistake of their careers. The reply came exactly 7 hours and 12 minutes after I hit send. Subject line, tomorrow, 8 o'clock a.m. Atrium Cafe. 15 minutes. No pleasantries, no emojis. Just coordinates and a clock. Sarah Chen didn't need to waste words, was giving me something infinitely rarer than praise. A second chance, carved out of thin air and raw curiosity. I stared at the screen, wide-eyed and half-feral, like I'd just been handed a match in a coal mine. 15 minutes. 15. That's all I had to justify my existence, to prove that Odyssey wasn't some pieced-together PowerPoint Frankenstein, but a living, breathing beast that deserved to be seen. So I did what every burned-out dev with nothing left to lose does. Shut off the world and went to war. The next 36 hours blurred. I don't remember sleeping. I remember Red Bull stacked like ammo shells, Uber Eats bags piling up like battlefield shrapnel, and code, glorious, furious code, spilling out of me like blood from a reopened wound. I didn't just polish Odyssey. I weaponized it. The first thing I did, I brought back the dynamic behavioral modulator. The feature mark had sneered it like it was a shiny toy. Too granular, he'd said. Clients want dashboards, not diagnostics. But he didn't get it. This wasn't about features. It was about foresight. That module let Odyssey learn how a team works and adapt in real time. It could see bottlenecks before they formed, spot burnout patterns, redirect workflows before a project derailed. Mark thought it was unnecessary, but I knew it was the soul of the whole damn system, so I rewired it, trained it on a new dataset, gave it teeth. Then I turned to the UX, stripped out every corporate-mandated style suggestion David had ever forced on me. No more bloated tooltips or low-contrast garbage. I redesigned the interface like I was building it for Sarah herself. Efficient, intuitive, clean. Something that worked as fast as she thought. By the 30th hour, I could feel my body breaking down, fingers locking, vision doubling. But I couldn't stop. I wasn't just coding anymore. I was testifying, screaming through semicolons. Every line was a defiant I was never unprepared. The clock hit 3:12 a.m. the morning of the meeting, and I finally ran the build one last time. No bugs, no crashes. It was perfect. No, I was perfect. I printed a sleek summary packet. No fluff. Just data, logic, and a roadmap. slipped it into a black folder so clean it looked like a resignation letter to God. I shut the laptop and stared into the silence of my living room, the hum of the refrigerator the only applause. 15 minutes. I didn't need more, because I wasn't Rachel the employee anymore. I was Rachel Vaughn, founder and CEO of Phoenix Solutions, and I had just built the one prototype they never saw coming. The cafe was already half full when I got there. Warm light, quiet jazz, baristas who didn't care if your soul was bleeding as long as you tipped. I walked in wearing the only blazer I owned, the one I kept in the back of my closet like a relic from a past life. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, adrenaline, sleep deprivation, maybe rage, probably all three. Sarah Chen was already there. Black turtleneck, no makeup, sipping an espresso like it was a weapon. She looked up once, cool, sharp, and motioned to the chair across from her without a word. I sat. My knees felt like overcooked spaghetti. I slid the black folder across the table. She didn't touch it. "I'm giving you exactly 15 minutes, she said. "Start talking," so I did. But I didn't tell her about Mark, or David, or the HR room with the dying ficus. I didn't need to. That wasn't the pitch. That would have been petty. Instead, I opened my laptop and showed her. Let the interface come to life in that tiny cafe, Odyssey pulsing with purpose on a dim MacBook screen. Every feature precise, every animation crisp, every logic tree whispering. This was never meant for men in suits. It was meant for people who build things. And then I walked her through the adaptive module. She blinked. "Wait," she said, leaning in, eyes narrowing. "Is this real-time team behavior modeling?" "Yes," I said. "It learns. Not just task flow, it maps emotional labor, quiet stressors, communication drift. It recalibrates without disrupting momentum." Her espresso sat untouched now. I kept going, showed her the backend sandbox, walked her through a scenario where Odyssey saw a drop in code push velocity and rerouted QA to support onboarding so no backlog built up. Told her it could detect misaligned meeting load on middle managers and recommend async replacements. She asked questions, smart ones, the kind that only come from living in the trenches. I answered everyone, clear, direct. No jargon. Not once did I say the words Mark or David, because the point wasn't that they tried to bury me. The point was they buried the wrong body. When the clock hit 8:15, she didn't move. By 8:40, she was asking if the feature sets were modular. By 9 o'clock, her phone was on silent, and the espresso had gone cold. When it finally ended, she looked at me for a long time, like she was recalibrating some internal barometer. She closed the laptop herself and tapped the folder I'd handed her. "I'll be honest," she said. "I thought this was going to be noise, drama, but this," she looked me dead in the eye. "This is clarity." I smiled, barely. I didn't have energy left for victory laps. She stood up, slung her coat over one arm. "You should leave the building before they arrive. Don't want it to get awkward." And just like that, she was gone. I packed up in silence, hands finally steady. As I walked out into the morning air, a new weight settled over me. Not fear, consequence. I hadn't just made a pitch. I declared war, not with fire, not with lawsuits, with truth. And that kind of war doesn't end with applause. It ends when someone finally bleeds. But I wasn't afraid of the cost, because I knew they were about to pay it. I walked out of the elevator like I'd just survived a hurricane made of code and caffeine. Every part of me was buzzing, low and on fire. My blazer clung to my skin like a second, sweat-soaked spine, and my feet ached in a way that only comes from standing on principle for too damn long. I clutched my laptop like it was a loaded weapon, because that's exactly what it was now. The lobby of Innovate Corp was all brushed metal, overpriced succulents, and that weird hush you only hear in buildings where decisions worth millions get made over sparkling water. I was halfway to the revolving door when I saw them. Mark and David, striding in like they owned gravity. Mark had on his "I just got off a yacht" blazer, and that idiotic leather folio he carried everywhere like it held ancient secrets. David was trailing slightly behind, muttering into his phone, probably rehearsing some buzzword soup about vision alignment and synergy. And then Mark saw me. He slowed, blinked. His whole face did this twitch, confused, smug, suspicious. The kind of look you give a raccoon that somehow opened your garage fridge. Well, he said, stopping just a few feet away. "Didn't think they let spectators in early." I didn't flinch. His eyes narrowed. "Couldn't stay away, huh?" he added, smirking. I smiled. Not big, not sarcastic. Just that tiny, surgical smile, the kind that doesn't move past your lips but still manages to whisper, "You're already dead, and you don't even know it yet." I walked right past them, calm as a loaded gun, and sat down on one of those fancy lobby chairs that look like furniture but feel like concrete. Pulled out my phone, opened Slack, scrolled through absolutely nothing. Mark hesitated. I felt it, that little hiccup in his stride, the flicker of doubt crawling up his spine like a cold spider. But he pushed it down. Of course he did. Narcissists are great at pretending they're still winning when they're already halfway to the cliff. I glanced up once, watched them strut to the security desk and flash their badges. Heard David chuckle about something, probably rehearsing the story they'd tell once the contract was locked in. Rachel who? They'd say. Only now, I was the one with a name, and they were about to learn just how sharp it had become. At first, I stood at the security desk like royalty checking into a motel. Mark leaned against the counter, all smug elbows and designer cologne, while David fumbled with his badge like he expected someone to kiss it. I sat just 10 feet away, scrolling through fake Slack messages with the stillness of a sniper. The receptionist picked up the phone, her voice low and polite. Then something shifted. She asked them to wait. Twice. Mark laughed, one of those fake CEO chuckles meant to signal patience he didn't actually possess. But his knuckles tightened around the folio. David checked his watch. Twice. Another phone call, then another. Security didn't let them through. I watched it unfold like live theater. Slowly, deliciously. Mark started pacing, whispering into his phone. David pulled out his tablet, tapping at it like it might become a portal out of embarrassment. Then she arrived, woman in a sleek navy suit with a tablet in hand and a face carved from polished granite. Executive assistant, definitely high level. She didn't ask questions, didn't smile. She walked up to them and said, loud enough for half the lobby to hear it, "Gentlemen, the presentation with your team has been indefinitely postponed." Silence. Mark blinked. "Excuse me?" David stepped forward. "There must be some mix-up. We're scheduled." She held up a hand like a referee calling game over. "There's no mix-up. You've been notified. If you'd like to reschedule, submit a request through your rep." Mark's mouth opened, then closed. His face collapsed inward. His jaw clenched so tight I thought his veneers might crack. David looked like he'd just seen his 401k set on fire. And me? I didn't move. I just watched. That moment wasn't just sweet. It was surgical. Every dismissive email, every backhanded compliment, every time they cut me out, erased me, used me like a ghost in a code base, it all landed on their shoulders in a single, humiliating blow, in front of everyone. I felt something leave me, something old, something heavy. It was the last sliver of that version of me who waited for recognition, who asked for permission, who thought maybe, if I just worked harder, they'd see me. She was gone. In her place stood something colder. Smarter, more dangerous, a builder, a founder, a competitor. My phone buzzed. "Sarah Chen, my office. Now, let's talk numbers." I stood up slow, deliberate, walked past Mark and David without a word. Mark saw me. His eyes lit up, furious and lost, like he suddenly realized exactly what was happening. He opened his mouth. I didn't stop, didn't blink, didn't even look back, because I was done playing their game. Now they were standing on my field. The boardroom at Innovate Corp felt like the inside of a vault. Cold, silent, impossibly clean. Leather chairs, frosted glass. An untouched spread of pastries like a peace offering no one believed in. Across from me sat Sarah Chen, cool as ever, flanked by two legal vultures in sharp suits and steely stares. A contract folder rested open in front of me, fat with clauses and commas, and a number that made my vision tilt for just a second. $25 million for development, integration, ongoing support. A multi-year deal that would install Phoenix Solutions as Innovate Corp's primary optimization partner. And I was the one signing it, not Mark, not David, me. Sarah slid a Montblanc across the table. "Unless you want a different pen?" she asked, deadpan. "I've used worse," I muttered, fingers trembling just slightly. I reached for it, and that's when my phone buzzed. Once, twice, rapid, like panic in Morse code. I glanced down. "David L. What did you do?" "This is sabotage. You'll be hearing from our lawyers." I stared at it. Let the words sink in like cheap whiskey. The irony was so thick I nearly choked on it. Sabotage, this from the same man who buried my name, stole my work, and fired me while pretending to do me a favor. Now he was panicking. He was scrambling to reclaim something he never built. I didn't answer. Instead, I tilted the phone and gently slid it across the table toward Sarah. She picked it up, read the message without blinking, then barked out the sharpest laugh I'd ever heard in a corporate setting. "Well," she said, handing it back, that explains the 20 missed calls to our front desk. The lawyers smirked. Even one of them let out a snort before composing herself. I picked up the pen, paused, one last glance at the folder. At the name printed at the top in clean serif font, Phoenix Solutions, LLC, not Rachel the team player, not Rachel the workhorse, not Rachel the ghost behind the genius. This was Rachel Vaughn, founder. I signed. With that one stroke of ink, I didn't just close a deal. I closed the chapter they tried to write without me. I salted the earth behind me so thoroughly not even their buzzwords could sprout. No polite goodbyes. No press release. No handshake across the void. Just a signature, a sealed contract, and a reckoning they'd never see coming. When I left that building, I didn't look back. Didn't need to. They'd spend years picking through the rubble, trying to figure out how they lost everything they thought was already theirs. And me? I had work to do, war to build, and 25 million reasons to never sit quietly in a windowless room again. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.